Hi, Joe.
How's it going?
Hey, thanks for
Nice to
joining
meet
us.
you.
You too. My pleasure.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I'm
I've got the vinyl here ready.
Cool.
yeah, thanks for joining. I'm Jen, and this is Matt from across the pond in the UK. He's in a really cool
Very
band called
far away.
Twisted Illusion. I'll let you introduce yourself, Matt.
Hi, Joe. Yeah, we thought it'd be cool to just talk a lot. I've done interviews with Jen before, and we've always had a good chat, but we always end up seem to talking about Toto. So I jumped at the chance to say hi and, talk all things music with you. That'd be great.
Great. It's nice to meet you guys. I miss England. I lived there when I was a child.
Oh, wow. Whereabouts?
In London. My
Okay.
father was doing several films, and at that time in the 70s,
Of course, yeah.
they were coming over to England a lot to record because you could avoid paying union costs to the musicians here.
I'll get out
And
close.
so we went over there for several years when I was a kid. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I've never been, not yet. Hopefully one day.
It's
Well-
not as good as it seems in the films.
Well, Joe, yeah, it's cool to chat with you because I was just going through like everything you've been a part of, and I realized you were part of, my childhood. You sang the Adventures of Gummy Bears theme song, The Lion King.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's kind of cool to see that, you were part of my childhood, and here you are, you're still making great music. So can you talk a little bit about how you continue to fuel your musical creativity?
I just, there's no real secret. My father once told me when I was probably in my 20s or something like that, just, make sure you get up every day and write at least 4 bars of music, meaning, just the discipline of doing it and stuff. So that the answer to is I just try and keep at it. That's all it really is. And, if it's when you stop is when, for me, when the creative juices stop flowing also. So you just got to keep at it. That's what I try and do.
Oh, that's a good secret. What would you say, Matt? Because I know you're always keeping at it as well.
Yeah, like, I don't know if you find it, like you say, write 4 bars of music a day. I find I have to regiment it. I don't know about you. I feel I have to kind of, like you say, treat it as a discipline and exercise that you've got to do every day. Like you go into the gym of writing music. You feel like you've got to do that every day. You've got to get your reps in for writing a chord progression or something.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's definitely true about being a singer. I mean, once I went back to a good teacher and sort of relearned how to do the stuff live, these are exercises and things that kind of must be done on a daily basis, whether you're out there working or not, just to keep it in shape. And it's like going to the gym. It's exactly right.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you about my personal introduction to you and to Toto, in fact, was Toto XIV. That record just blew me away. I'd kind of always been aware of Toto as, the Africa phenomenon and Hold the Line and Rosanna, the big singles basically. And I'd never delved deeper. And then I kind of just blind bought Toto XIV on the basis of the artwork. I just saw it in a record shop and I was like, you know what? I like those songs. I'm gonna buy Toto XIV, and then it blew me back straight away, right from Running Out of Time and just all those great songs on it. Can see you on that tour. Can you talk about that period a little bit and your recollections of that period and how you felt about those songs? Because to me, they're some of the strongest in the entire Toto discography for me.
Well, that's great. It's a great compliment. Yeah, that was, if I'm not correct, like right around 2014.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
We had just come off of a pretty long and successful run that was in 2013 towards the end of 2014.
Yeah, you were touring like mad back then, weren't you?
Yeah, we did a DVD video of a performance in Poland that year.
I have the vinyl.
Exactly. It was that particular year. And when we came off the road, I think what it was that we had a huge chunk of time where we weren't going to go back out on the road.
Right.
And one of us just started talking about the idea of just, I know, I'm incorrect. I know what it was the band at the time had some kind of an agreement with a record company in Italy where they owed them a record.
Right. Yeah, that's Frontiers, I believe.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so we picked that time because we had the most time in between tour runs to do it. So we picked that time to do it. Luke had been working with this guy CJ Vanston, who's a friend of all of ours, and we just went up, just set about doing it. It's just like we were talking about, getting up every day and doing one little thing. We just kind of worked on it every day until it was done.
To me, it's like it's the most Toto album as well, because it's kind of got every flavor of Toto that I like. It's got, the hard rockers. It's got the big epic in Great Expectations. It's got the groove in Chinatown, and there's a great ballad from, Steve Porcaro, Little Things. I just think it's a really kind of representative record of Toto, and I'm glad that there are artists like Toto that can go in a way that are still representing modern artists and being able to do something so great so far into their career. Because usually you get, a legacy artist that they'll run out of steam a few records in, and it's good to see Toto be able to do that so far into their careers.
Well, that's cool. That's nice. Yeah, all the Toto records are pretty eclectic, in terms of style. Absolutely. What you mentioned, there's something like Great Expectations on the same album as Chinatown, on the same on the same album as Running Out of Time. And that goes back to the very, very beginning of Toto. I mean, that we're talking about David Page. He's the one
Absolutely.
that he's so skilled and so interested in so many different styles of music that there's no Toto album really that sort of sticks to one particular style. There's like a bunch of things going on. R&B, there's like Hold the Line being on the same album as Georgie Porgy.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
Rock Maker.
Yeah, well, Rockmaker and Hold the Line make more sense, but Georgie Porgy is like a completely different kind of R&B group that wouldn't necessarily belong on an album with a song like Hold the Line, at least back in the 70s. That was like,
absolutely,
And the band got a lot of shit for not having a sound, for not having a particular style. And that's because Page has always been this guy who's interested in all these different kinds of styles, and he's capable of doing them. So I don't know if you've listened to my album, but like I mimic him in that way. I'm always looking for an album to be just like, not kind of just the same thing all the way through, but really a bunch of different varying things. That's from Dave. I learned that sort of eclectic thing from him.
So to jump in onto the new album, and sorry to jump in, Jen. Go on.
That's okay. I was just going to say Toto 14, because you asked about it.
Yes.
To me, was one of the perfect examples of having a bunch of different styles that somehow work as a collection.
Yeah, definitely. That's what it was to me as well. So yeah, I'm glad that was the intention. With the new record, obviously there's a plethora of musicians on this record. How do you go about assigning roles in each song? How do you go, that's the song for Lee Sklar, that's the song for Lukather? How was that process of going, who plays on this one? Well,
but believe it or not, it's not. I don't battle very much about those questions. First of all, if it's somebody that I don't know really well or haven't worked with before, I generally don't have them in mind. There was one particular person, a drummer, that I wanted to have on the record once this particular song was finished, but I just couldn't hook up and make it happen with him. It's not somebody that I work with normally, but it would have been a nice fit. But there was a couple of songs on the album where I was very specific. Like once I had the body of the song, I knew, for example, that Simon Phillips was going to be perfect for that particular song, that kind of thing. Other than that, I just kind of did it as I went. First of all, most of the album, a lot of it, as I was developing it, I was doing it with Mike Landau, the guitar player, who I was in a band with when I was a kid. So a lot of his work was sort of, he records at his studio and I'm building my stuff here. a lot of that stuff was sort of done as songs were being written. So he was kind of always a part of the process, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two, like for instance, with Luke, I just was like, you know, frantically looking, or where can I put him? I need to have him on here. There's got to be some song, some great place, you know, that I can have him on there, because Landau's primarily playing the guitar. So I just found the right places for him. I just looked around and found the right place for a kind of a Luke solo.
Yeah, that's what Luke's solos on it. You kind of know when Luke comes into the fold. There's definitely kind of you feel the transition there.
And one of my favorite things on the album is on a song called "Remember Her," where it starts with a Luke solo and goes right into a Landau solo.
Yeah.
And the contrast between the two is just wonderful to me. I mean, I'm one of the biggest fans of you know, guitar players on the planet. I love my job on stage, because when I'm actually not singing a line, I get to watch these guys play, which is incredible.
It's a nice gig, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about "Never Saw You Coming," because I really love that song. It really starts off the album, you know, on a strong point. And you said it's your first opportunity in ages to show your true sound. Can you kind of expand upon that?
I guess I just meant that the way that I arranged the instruments, you know, I did the drums myself on that. I did the bass myself on that. The song, in terms of the writing of it, is there is a co-writer on it, but he gave me the kernel of the idea to get started with the song, which actually bears no resemblance to the finished song. So for me, what that statement means is just that from top to bottom, production and songwriting wise, this is probably, it feels to me like the closest I've gotten in a long time to feeling like, yeah, this is me. This is like more me than Toto. You know what I mean? That's what I meant, you know.
You know, with both of these records that you and Steve have put out together, to me, I hope I'm not being too bold in saying this, I think it feels like a big double album that Toto has done. It feels like you've got this kind of broad spectrum of both influences there. Obviously, Steve's is a bit more, you know, guitar based, and it sounds like him. And yours obviously sounds like you, but it just seems like two parts of a different puzzle. So I do like the idea that you did, you know, the box set where everything's in one place and you've got this whole kind of journey, and the artwork's fairly similar. And was that a considered thing, or was that just a way of packaging it later? Was that a considered thing musically?
No, it wasn't a considered thing musically. Luke had always planned to go in and do his record the way he wanted to do it, which was 70s style, which is basically have all the songs ready and have the band in the studio and record it, one or two takes, overdub a few things, and he ended up finishing that record in a couple of weeks, which is normal of how a record like that would be done in the 70s. Mine was done very different. I started developing stuff back in 2016, all the way through while we were touring, and then in 2020 really sat down and said, okay, now I have the time and the equipment and everything to finish it. And it's very much an album that's built and produced out that way. I sent songs out for musicians to play on. In other words, there's nothing on my album where everybody got into one room at the same time.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So we made them very, very separate from each other. And what happened is that Luke introduced me to his record company, and they decided that they were going to take my record. And that was when the whole idea of sort of combining and doing similar things, that was when that happened, because we realized that since Toto wasn't going to tour this year, that it might be nice to give Toto fans something along with releasing solo albums by putting them together. Yeah, so that was the idea, and you know, hopefully, you know, Toto. Hopefully people got what you say. The albums don't necessarily go exactly together, but they work, because you can take any one of those tunes off of his album and then one off of my album, and they could easily be on a Toto album. Yeah,
that's what I thought. Yeah, it kind of felt like there was a mixture of A and B sides that you could have easily like married together between the two records. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Would you have preferred to have gone in the studio the traditional way with this record, or are you happy that it was a function of being isolated?
No, my plan was kind of always to do it the way I did it was, you know,
Okay, that's cool.
like you said, I isolated I started before the pandemic happened, and the pandemic just sort of gave me, focus that I didn't necessarily have to get it done as quickly. But I probably would have liked to have gone in the studio and done a tune or two the way Luke did it and stuff. But that's not the way I produce. I do it the hard way.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Dogs of Oz tour. It looks like it's rescheduled for 2022. Is there anything you can tell us about it?
Well, we're just excited to get back out there and to play. That's as much as I can tell you. I mean, we've got the guys ready to go, and we're just waiting for venues to open up to be able to come out and play. For me, it's horrible not being able to get out on the road. I'm a much happier person when I have those runs to do. I enjoy doing it, and I seem to be a little bit healthier when I'm out on the road because you have to take care of your voice. So being home and not having that has definitely been tough. So we're really looking forward to it. Like I said, everybody's ready to go, and as things are sort of lightening up pandemic wise and stuff, Luke, who primarily sort of is in contact with our agents and promoters, is slowly finding more stuff sooner, rather than like having to wait until like this time next year. So we want to get out there as soon as we can, and can't wait. And the band that we have is off the chain. It's unbelievably great. So
what's the set list going to look like for this particular lineup? Are you going to include any of the solo album material?
Well, I think we feel like we have to. I think we feel like that it would be it's kind of feel like we need to. Neither of us are sure what we're going to do. I probably am going to have to try and attempt doing Never Saw You Coming, just because
that'd be great.
Of the ones on my album, it seems to be the one that was the most listened to or whatever.
The Dream's a standout one for me. I think that'd be great live.
The Dream really actually would be a lot of fun live, actually. Yeah. That was the last song written for the album, written in like a couple of days.
Just love all the vocal arrangements on it, all the counterparts, and it's really well constructed. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the fun for me. Is the vocal arrangement and layering and editing and all that stuff. That's once I get it all. There's my mics over here. Once I get it all on tape, that's the fun.
Yeah.
Is getting
same here. Harmonies everywhere. That's all I care about.
Harmonies, and also I like to sing in different ranges. So it's like so that the high guy that people hear with Toto bears no resemblance to like the first vocal you hear on the album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was wondering, is there a song from your career that you have never performed live that you hope to do so one day?
That's a good one.
Well, that's a great question. There's an answer to that song, and I actually tried to perform it a couple of times, and we didn't keep doing it because it didn't sound right to me just from this particular band. It wasn't with Toto. It was like a group of guys that I was playing with on my own. The song is 1,000 Years.
I love that song. Yeah.
Off of the Seventh One album. I've always wanted to do like a real good, like Toto tour production version of that song.
Do you know what would be really cool? I've seen other bands do it, of course, but I think Toto would be really great if they did like an album in full somewhere, production of maybe the Seventh One, or maybe Toto 4, or just one of the big albums.
We've definitely talked about it. We've talked about doing a whole tour where the first part of the show is, for instance, the Seventh One, and then we come back, and instead of doing like an encore, you do like a 5-song encore that has all of the hits that people want to hear.
Yeah. Well, you got the 35th anniversary coming up, so 2023,
45th.
Oh, it'd be 45. Jesus Christ, it isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. 88. There goes my maths.
Yes, 78 technically, but they started making the first album in 77. So long time.
It's a long time to be in the music industry. I guess that could kind of segue nicely to, you know, I'm sure you get the question in the roundabout way a lot, but how is your perception of touring now between doing it in the 80s? Is there a massive difference in terms of like crowd reception and how things go down, or does it all just seem like one big blur of people?
But that definitely doesn't seem like one blur of people. I mean, as far as the audiences go, I can't remember what in the old days or even now any difference really with the excitement of the crowd. The crowds who come to Toto shows want to hear all the different styles, and they also want to see, you know, the musicianship and the playing and stuff, and or I should say at least a huge body of all the crowds. We got a lot. There's a lot of great Toto fans, that kind of thing. So, I forget the gist of your question again.
Just the kind of old versus modern. What, like, because obviously I'm
right.
Like
the main comment I was going to make is that for me in the old days, I didn't have in-ear monitors, which we all can have now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the old days, we used to have wedges and everything. So the difference for me is night and day as far as doing the work on stage. In terms of your answer to your question with the audiences, it feels very much the same. Obviously, a lot of them are older than they were back, back in the 80s.
And maybe holding cell phones.
And a lot of people are bringing kids. They're kids, Toto fans, bringing their kids who they've turned into Toto fans because they've listened to that music in their houses.
Indoctrinated.
So what's very cool is that in the last 10 years, we've seen a lot, especially in the last 4 years, since Africa had a whole new life again.
Yeah, that song just does not stop, does it?
The song doesn't stop, and I think it's one of those songs that won't ever stop. It's just always going to be out there. And thank God for it, because the last few years that we toured, 16, 17, 18, 19, the crowds were bigger. And there were a lot younger people in the crowds because they had heard these new versions of Africa, the Weezer version and whatever.
I think I have another theory on that.
Well, that's true. There's probably plenty.
It leads quite nicely into the thing of my perception of Toto, and definitely in the UK, I think this may be a bit more specific to Toto. I've always been that kind of band that are representative of class and great musicianship. I gigged a lot in cover bands for the last few years, and the band is Toto. That's the kind of benchmark of can you play the Rosanna solo? Can you do the Rosanna shuffle? They're all the benchmarks of playing. So I think a lot of the younger kind of music student crowd is the audience that is kind of jumping on to go and seeing Toto live these days. I know that's kind of definitely my perspective with my friends and stuff. That's you all go and see Toto. It's check out the bass player. All the bass players are on that side, and all the drummers are watching whoever's on the drums. That's my perception.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we have a name for those cats and people who come and see the show. We call them musos because they're musicians.
Absolutely.
Who are coming almost for a musical lecture in a way. They're coming.
That's a good way of putting it.
And that's why I love my job so much, because when I'm not singing, those guys get to watch those guys playing. And the whole idea of Toto, in my mind, from the very beginning, is a group of the very, very best of musicians. Yeah. That when they play together, their playing and their abilities are just like you said, are just top notch or whatever. And so it's great to hear. Not surprising though that a lot of people sort of learn from listening to Toto songs, because they're hard to play.
Yeah, they really deceptively so as well. They don't sound hard. You listen to a song like Rosanna, it's very singable, it's very catchy. There's a great simple backbeat almost, but you try and break down the construction of that song and the playing underneath everything and the orchestration. It's just masterful.
Yeah, it is. And seeing and watching these guys just sort of start playing that way is amazing to watch. And a lot of people complain because it's not the original band. It's not the same six guys, blah, blah, blah. which is all very, very true. But the way I've looked at it as we've continued is that the band, the idea of the band, Jeff Porcaro, David Page, those David Hungate, those original guys who were the rhythm section, was that this was going to be a band and an album of songs produced and written and produced by the very best studio musicians out there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So the concept of the band is sort of still in play to me. The idea is that if you're going to be in this band, you got to be as good as, like, you know, the original guys, if not better.
So if let's say, let's go deeper. Let's say the idea of Toto is detached from who's in it. Do you think Toto could be here in 100 years with, you know, some exceptional musicians from the future touring as Toto? Because I think it's interesting to see where, like, the kind of, you know, the artists from the 70s and 80s, what happens to them in 100 years? Will their music live on live? Will it become like, you know, the way we view classical music, and that's performed live these days in theaters and stuff? Do you think the same will happen for, you know, the classic artists? What do you think?
Well, I hope so. You know, to be honest with you, I don't see why something like a band like Toto wouldn't continue, since one of the ideas is just that it's like a band of incredible musicians and good singing. So, you know, the idea of like, you know, calling it Toto without Luke on stage is a little odd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's really like the last man standing of
He's really the heart, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I mean, he is. He's truly the front man. I always consider that's one of the reasons we get along so well, and why our chemistry works so well, is because, first of all, I've known him since I was a teenager, and he was a little bit older, and so we have sort of that brother relationship. But I've always felt like a great Robin to his Batman on stage, as opposed to having to come out and try and be the front man, so to speak.
Yeah, it's good that you can do that and be It's good that you can do that, because usually it's the singer going, I need to be the front man. It's good that you can just be a part of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I actually love the having a little bit of that pressure off, and also he's just so much better at it. He knows he's been doing the band and the touring for the entire 40 years. I mean, I had a 15-year chunk raising kids and composing music for television, and and doing completely other things. He's the only guy that's been on the road the entire time who's been in the band. So when you see him, you know you're at a Toto concert. So whether Toto continues, after we're all gone, who knows? But if the concept is about great musicians and musicianship, then why not?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's kind of cool. Well, it's great that, Toto had a resurgence, as well as Queen, after Bohemian Rhapsody came out. And what's kind of cool is that it's like a middle finger to Rolling Stone magazine, because I know they took the piss on both bands. So it's great to see that the fans are, keeping these bands going.
Yes, it is. Listen, for you kidding? For us, it gives us a job. That's the main thing. I mean, I'm lucky to be in a band like Toto, just because the fans are numerous and they're all over the planet, and most of them, at least where we have like sort of our biggest success touring and stuff, is always in Europe, which is my favorite place to be. So yeah, it's great. I'm extremely fortunate.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Zoom is telling us it's almost time up, because it only gives 45 minutes. Matt, was there anything else you wanted to ask?
No, I think I got out all my deep philosophical questions. Lovely to meet you, Joe.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for chatting. It's been a blast.
No problem. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.